What's up, everybody? It's LA. I was supposed to call you back. I'm gonna call you back. Don't worry. Let me just push out this live video really quick. Hey Jamar, thank you for the reply. Dave, what's up, boo? Thank you for the channel support. You did not have to do that, but I appreciate you so much. Everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is LA. I am here to simply talk about today this Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, and Justin Baldoni drama because it's too much to handle. And I found, oh, look how cute I look. Oh my. Anyway, my name is LA. Thank you for hanging out with me. I'm hoping my Wi-Fi stays really strong. Last time I was on Wi-Fi, I had like too many people in the house, and my Wi-Fi connection was so bad. But hopefully you all can see me very well. I hope Dave has the chance to hop on, and anybody else that's watching, please say hello in the comments. I want to talk about this because I found, let me tell you, the other day I was so sick and I was laying in bed for the longest time. TikTok saved my life that day. TikTok absolutely saved my life that day because I think I went to bed maybe like 2 o'clock p.m. Right? I went to bed at like 2 p.m. My light is so dark. Hold up, and I don't know why I'm stuttering so bad today. But if y'all see me on live, come hang out. Anyway, so I went to bed at like 2 p.m. the other night, right? And then this Blake Lively. Wait, I wanted to see how I looked. No, I look cute. This is so good. This camera is so much better. So anyway, so this Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds drama is what I want to talk about today. But first, I need to tell y'all how I was sick the other day, and I don't know what happened to me, but I was I was down bad. I laid in the bed from 2 p.m. until the next morning, and that night I really couldn't sleep because I was drinking like tea, and the one tea I mistakenly grabbed and put in my hot water was caffeinated. So I was up really, really late and I was drinking tea and I was just scrolling TikTok and I found this TikToker. And when I tell you, the TikToker broke down every piece of this Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds drama. And I thought it was so good. So why not all just check it out together? Because, we like a little tea and a little gossip every now and then. So first, this is Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. But wait, hold on. We're moving a little too fast. Let's run the intro, boo, and we'll be right. Yeah, Drake was patting you on the back. All the rappers. Hey, what's up? Back again. Hey, what's up? It's up to you to do the research. It's up to you. Okay, I'm back. And this is Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. I think everyone knows who Ryan Reynolds is, so I really don't need to get into who Ryan Reynolds is. You know who Ryan Reynolds is, very attractive, tall, blonde, Hollywood star. He's most famous for the show Deadpool. So if you don't know who her husband is, I'm sure when I say Deadpool, yes, Deadpool the superhero, you know exactly who I'm talking about. So I really want to take y'all down this absolutely insane rabbit hole because I found a TikToker who went through every bit of Justin Baldoni's response to Blake Lively's accusations. So Blake Lively on this set of the movie is accusing her co-star Justin Baldoni of inappropriate interactions, harassment, and whatnot. But what it's starting to seem like is that Blake Lively was really greedy, looking for an Oscar, looking for production credits, trying to rewrite the film, and nobody was bending the knee to her. So she got really upset. So what we're going to do is we are going to start with just some TikTok tea, and it really breaks everything down. So just grab some wine, grab something to drink, and a snack. We're going to go through a lot, and I'm going to come in between each part to just give my thoughts. But all of my thoughts pretty much align with this TikToker. So let's get started. I'm going to play these so you all can see them. Ready? Let's go.
Okay, so it literally took me 9 hours to get through and understand the entire Justin Baldoni lawsuit. Okay, so I've never been more scared. Okay, welcome to. Okay, so it literally took me 9 hours to get through and understand the entire Justin Baldoni lawsuit. I would be lying to you guys if I didn't say reading this and going through it with a fine tooth comb and really making a meaningful effort to just look at the facts alone didn't completely change my entire perspective on the situation. So I'm going to do my best to go through the most important points that I found because I think I discovered some things that I have not seen anybody else talk about. Before I do, I would just like to say that I don't get paid through TikTok, and doing these types of videos, the video essays, the deep dives, it doesn't really benefit me or my business in any way. So it would really just mean a lot if you're not following me to just press the little follow button. It's free, it's really easy, and it would mean a lot. So thank you. Now, before people come at me in the comments, I just want to say yes, initially I did fully believe Blake Lively. And even after Justin Baldoni filed his first lawsuit against the New York Times, I read that. I still was not fully convinced of his case, to be honest with you. And I'm not going to apologize for that because at the end of the day, we should all be aware it is statistically unlikely for a woman to lie about sexual harassment claims. So I'm not going to apologize for having a knee-jerk reaction of trying to kind of course correct. However, there's also a special place in hell for people who lie about these types of things because it creates an atmosphere where people who are real victims are scared to come forward. I was not in the room. I do not know these people. You guys know how I feel about celebrities. But just keep in mind the track record here. I was one of the few people that I didn't immediately change my mind when Justin Baldoni first came out with his side of the story. I was not prepared for the mountain and the line by line evidence that disputed every single solitary thing that Blake Lively said. Everything. So, unless Blake Lively has some massive smoking gun, like a video of Justin Baldoni harassing her or doing something terrible, I am terrified for her and Ryan Reynolds' reputation because if this goes to court, it could be the end of them forever because they seem like terrible, terrible people. So after reading the first two lawsuits and going through them line by line, there was still one question for me that wasn't adding up, which is how did this seemingly normal friendship and working relationship between Justin and Blake turn sour so dramatically and escalate to the point of such intense hatred between the two? And after reading this lawsuit, I think we found that answer. I truly, wholeheartedly believe that the only explanation to this is that there was some type of underlying flirtation happening between the two. I believe that someone developed feelings for the other. Ryan Reynolds sensed this, discovered this in some way, because this is the only explanation for me as to why he would be so bent on absolutely destroying this individual's life. I'd like to remind you guys that both Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds met each other being co-stars and fell in love being co-stars. This is something that happens very often because you're in close quarters with someone. All the actors are good looking. You're simulating sex and kissing with somebody. Feelings can occur. This is also how Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds met when they were both with other partners. I believe that both Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds cheated on their respective partners when they got together on Green Lantern, allegedly. So when we look at their messages, I think it makes a lot of sense because I don't know about you guys, but I don't think this is appropriate the way that these co-stars were speaking to each other. So let's look at this. On both their parts. At one point, Justin Baldoni messages Blake Lively in the evening and says, I like sentimental Blake. She says, never met her. He says, I also like asshole Blake. Don't worry. Good night. She says, I've met her. So have my suppositories. Okay, so a little bit of an inappropriate joke on behalf of Blake Lively, referencing inserting something up her rectum. Another time, Lively was so close and comfortable with Baldoni that she freely breastfed in front of him during meetings. She took photos of him holding and soothing her crying baby in her penthouse. They laughed deliriously during late night writing sessions. All of these took place after the alleged sexual harassment. Another time, this is referenced again. He says, the lawsuit says Baldoni.
Okay, what I find so interesting about what he's breaking down is number one, she started this lawsuit and the allegations. And after that, she was still seen kikiing, having fun with him, inviting him to be around her children. This is all after she alleges that she was harassed by him. Let's keep going and see if it gets any better for Blake. It doesn't. I'm just going to forewarn you. It doesn't get better.
Baldoni filmed her uncontrollably laughing with him as they rehearsed late night into the evening, often delirious with exhaustion. So this is the infamous text message that Blake Lively sent to Justin Baldoni, again at 10 p.m. in the evening. Wrote this man an essay. I'm not sure if Ryan Reynolds was sitting right next to her when she did, but I do not think it is remotely out of the realm of possibility that someone as ego-driven as Ryan Reynolds could have become insecure in the fact that his wife was collaborating so closely and filming something so intimate as this film was.
Okay, y'all. Do not forget that Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds met each other on set. They met they met on set, so it's highly likely that her husband is super insecure about her filming with a man that looks like Justin Baldoni. He's a very attractive man. Like, let's not pretend that he isn't. Let's take another look at Justin Baldoni. He's very attractive. There's no denying this. He's a rugged, dark man, beard, clearly tall because I believe Blake Lively is a tall woman. He's tall, he's attractive, and Ryan Reynolds has a look, but Justin Baldoni also has a look. So them being so close on set had Ryan Reynolds really hung up. And why are you and him up late at night? Why is he around my children? This is not professional. This has way past professional in any means. So we'll keep going. I'm going to go back to this TikTok breakdown, but it's not looking good for Blake at all, y'all.
With someone, and as they say, you lose them the way that you catch them. So that could have been a thought that was percolating in the back of his mind. That was the underlying emotional factors that drove this disagreement that really should have been settled privately into a full-blown war. As you guys know, this is the infamous text message that was sent the evening that Justin Baldoni was allegedly ambushed by Ryan Reynolds and Taylor Swift, who were talking about how Blake Lively's script was so amazing, basically suggesting that you better pick Blake Lively's script. And this is the infamous message where she compared herself to Khaleesi. She said, I am Khaleesi. I happen to have a few dragons for better or worse, but usually for better, because my dragons also protect those I fight for. So really, we all benefit from those gorgeous monsters of mine. You will too, I can promise you. This message really disgusts me because I know we know really powerful people do this, but to just hear somebody so brazenly talk about the influence she has because she's friends with one of the most powerful celebrities in the entire world Ryan Reynolds is obviously extremely powerful in Hollywood. To sort of use that as a veiled threat is pretty disgusting and honestly just really embarrassing. If I was
So as I'm watching this, I'm just getting chills all over again from when I first watched it because what Blake Lively essentially is doing is telling the writer that she wants to rewrite part of the movie enough that would give her credit, right? Enough that would give her writing credit, and then she wanted producer credits. The problem is she then uses her husband Ryan Reynolds and her friend Taylor Swift to intimidate Justin Baldoni into giving her credits that after he'll go into detail about that as well, but after they did a screen test on his version and her version, his version was doing better. So she still wanted to try to influence Justin Baldoni by telling him that he better be careful because she has Taylor Swift and Ryan Reynolds on her team. So she references herself as Khaleesi from Game of Thrones. This girl is demented. That's why they call her Plantation Princess. Uh-oh. Sorry, guys. My light just cut off. But that's why they call her Plantation Princess. Give me 1 second. I'm going to plug the light in. But I'll go back off camera and you can all see the rest of the TikTok.
I don't think Taylor Swift is probably happy about being used as a bargaining tool. So the first thing that Blake Lively seemingly did lie about is when she was saying that Justin Baldoni was fat shaming her and that there was no scene in the film where she had to be lifted. There was in fact a scene where she had to be lifted, which was cut from the movie because of her. Justin Baldoni did in fact and does have proof that he has a back injury. And he also did show proof that the reason he inquired about her weight was so he could practice physically, so he could lift her up. So he wasn't really fat shaming her. Not only was he not fat shaming her, he was actually doing the opposite. And we have messages to prove that he was actually supporting her and the insecurities that she was feeling. He said, I want you to look amazing. Anything you're insecure about, we'll walk through and get creative together and make you comfortable. I don't want you to stress about your body. It's the last thing you need. So there you go. So Blake Lively responds to this message and says, as woke as we both are and work to be, first of all, who calls themselves woke? The millennial really jumped out there for a second. This movie requires a certain aesthetic. So if you're confused about what she's saying there, she's basically saying it's not politically correct to say, but I got to get skinny for this role and I'm going to do everything I can to accomplish that. She then says this is necessary to make the film a commercial success, using the word commercial several times, to me showing that it being a financial success was maybe her top priority. And at the bottom of this message, she says, we are going to kill it and be so fit they have to Lola us to look less bangin'. Lola, in other words, means visual effects. So she's basically saying, don't worry, Justin, me and you got this. We're going to become so fit that they're going to have to visually edit us to make us look uglier. The other misleading part about Blake Lively's lawsuit is that she said there was no intimacy coordinator. There was 100% an intimacy coordinator on set for all scenes where it was required. Another specific part about Blake Lively's lawsuit that seems to have been very grossly misrepresented by her was she alleged that Justin Baldoni basically broke character, smelt her, was being very creepy, said that she smelt good, not as part of the film, but as himself, and it made her very uncomfortable. But apparently, Blake Lively had apologized because her spray tan smelled bad. And Justin Baldoni said, don't worry, it smells good. And they continued acting. This was allegedly caught on film. So this is one of these examples where if it goes to court and they have the full footage of her saying this, and she was trying to make him look like a creep, and it was just this very innocuous interaction that's not going to make her look good. Another similar thing happened later was when she alleged that he was commenting on her physical appearance. They apparently have video and audio footage of Lively making fun of his nose and saying that he needed a nose job. And we're not even halfway done, so go to part 2. Okay, so it literally... Okay, welcome to part 2 of going through Justin Baldoni's lawsuit to Blake Lively. This is not my job. I don't get paid for this, so please follow me. It's 2 in the morning and we are only halfway done. So, another part about Blake Lively's lawsuit, when I read it, I was like, oh my gosh, Justin Baldoni is such a creep, is he allegedly called her hot during the scene where she was wearing a onesie. According to this lawsuit, what Baldoni actually said was he said, "It will be hot," as it was 90 degrees in the small bar with no air conditioning. Lively mischaracterizes this in her complaint as Baldoni referring to her personally as hot, using the slang term. And in the footnotes of this section, it says this entire interaction was documented on camera and they have the receipts. This is yet another example that if this is true, presumably it is, and it goes to court, and they have footage of him saying it will be hot and not calling her hot, and she tried to basically completely ruin this person's life over something that was a very malicious fabrication of the context of what was really said. That's not going to look good for her. And this is kind of why my predominant theory is that Ryan Reynolds is behind this, because it really feels like at a certain point Blake Lively just stopped wanting to be in contact with Justin Baldoni, and someone behind the scenes took over and was contacting everybody. Sony, Wayfair, Baldoni, it was all going through Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds people. I think that this was Ryan Reynolds, because this is the only explanation for me. Because if Blake Lively knew the truth, I can't imagine she would be willing to risk her entire reputation trying to take someone else down when it doesn't seem like the facts are on her side. Okay, so this next part is a little bit uncomfortable for me to read because it's not appropriate, but I'm going to do it anyway because it's important.
Okay, so because I just want to catch you up and have you understand exactly what he's saying, is that in this part two of his breakdown, he is explaining that Blake Lively had clearly embellished a lot of her interaction with Justin Baldoni to appease Ryan Reynolds. And that's why this blew up so big. Because Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni knew the full details and truth of their interactions. But for her to go after him the way that she has in this lawsuit means that she had to completely pull out of the allegations, and Ryan Reynolds kind of took over. And now they want to annihilate this person, or Ryan Reynolds does, but Blake Lively is kind of caught up because she can't say, yes, honey, I was inappropriate with Justin Baldoni. Yes, I was trying to flirt with him throughout our engagements on the movie set. Yes, he was with me late nights. We were together. He was around the children. Instead of being a stand-up person and saying, yes, I was wrong, she goes in with her husband to try to annihilate Justin Baldoni, because she won't simply tell her husband the truth, like, wait, yeah, we both were inappropriate, or whatever the case may be, but that sounds like it's the case. Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni had an inappropriate, flirtatious relationship on set. But that's not the problem. The problem is Blake Lively got caught by her husband, Ryan Reynolds. And in turn, Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively accuses him of harassment, accuses him of inappropriate behavior, threatens him with her powerful friends like Taylor Swift and her husband, and they've gone after this man instead of them both sharing the blame of inappropriate behavior. But what can you do? If two adults want to flirt with each other, that's what they're going to do. I don't know. I know Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, who I clearly spelled his name wrong. Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds are a wrap after this. And how they got Taylor Swift caught up in it, this is really messy and really bad. But let's keep going so you all can see how nasty it gets.
Blake Lively alleged in her complaint that Justin Baldoni was basically this creep who kept bringing up all of these sexual things, and specifically referenced a conversation where they're talking about orgasming for a sexual scene in the film. So the lawsuit states that The character Ryle was not to orgasm after he satisfied Lily, the character. Lively remarked, as herself, and said, I'd be mortified if that happened to me, personalizing the character's sexual act. Baldoni, following Lively's lead in what he understood to be an attempt to connect with the characters, remarked that those have been some of the most beautiful moments between him and his wife. They then moved on. So Justin Baldoni was basically saying, I satisfy my wife.
Listen, y'all, this is really this is so bad. This is so bad. Blake Lively has no one to blame for what's going to happen to her career after this but herself. She has no one to blame but herself. She went in this full throttle, gas to the floor, and she ends up being the creep. And the even worse part about it is he'll get to this through his TikTok breakdown of Justin Baldoni's response. The worst part of it is that Blake Lively, she was lying to everyone. She didn't maybe know that Justin Baldoni was constantly mic'd up and being filmed. So every incident that she says happened, he has video and audio recording of it. So that's the worst part about all of this is that she's really looking like a creep. And not in a way that she was harassing him instead. No, in a way that she's absolutely a liar. She's damaged her reputation. She's brought her husband into it because she wasn't honest with her husband. And she's ruined like a woman's ability to be honest and accuse someone. Now there's extra doubt. We hate when women do this because now there's an extra cloud for real victims. There's an extra cloud added for real victims who have to report or want to report harassment or assault. But let's keep going.
It seems like Ryan Reynolds doesn't satisfy his. That's just what it says. I'm sorry. She also accused Justin Baldoni about constantly bringing up porn, but apparently another instance that was caught on camera was Lively started that conversation, and she said, I don't want it to look like porn, and opened up that she had never seen porn in her life. Baldoni complimented her and said that's wonderful because unfortunately he was exposed to it as a young age and developed an addiction, which is something he's discussed in his book and his podcasts. So it was actually Blake Lively allegedly that brought up that conversation to begin with. So Justin Baldoni's lawyer also disputes the claim that Blake Lively made in her complaint, where she said she felt uncomfortable that Justin Baldoni hired his friend to play the OBGYN. They state that Baldoni casting an experienced actor who happens to be a friend is no different than casting Lively's sister, who was cast because she is Lively's sister. So I didn't realize this, but they actually did hire Blake Lively's sister for this film, so she did have a role. And then they explain that the actor portraying the OBGYN is actually an award-winning Shakespearean-trained actor with a master's degree in acting from UCLA. Now, this next part, I want you guys to pay attention because it is probably the most damning piece of information for Blake Lively. And it is ultimately the reason why I was so on her side to begin with, because it's really starting to seem like she grossly misled the public with this one little thing, but it's very, very important, possibly the most important thing. It is crucial to note that the list of grievances read at the ambush meeting where Ryan Reynolds verbally assaulted Justin Baldoni allegedly was separate and apart from the 17-point return to production demands and were never presented to any of the parties present. Though Lively's complaint misleadingly suggests the parties agreed to a list of 30 items, many of the items listed on her complaint were new, entirely based in lies, and neither read nor provided to any of the parties, let alone agreed to. The only document presented to the parties was the 17-point return to production demands presented on November 9th and signed over 2 weeks after this meeting on January 9th. So the reason why that's so huge is the way that Blake Lively's lawyers wrote her complaint is she put down this list of 30 grievances at the beginning. And she made it seem like Justin Baldoni and Jamie Heath signed on to those grievances of all of those little specific things of walking in the trailer and sexual harassment and watching her when.
So let me tell you why this is not only really horrible for her. What he's saying is Blake Lively initially filed the assault and harassment case, stating that there was a list of demands that she wanted that they agreed to. But then she had to go back because there wasn't. She presented even lies to her lawyer. The lawyer is who you at least should be honest with. This woman is so self-centered and so self-absorbed. She is absolutely willing to take anyone down with her. Her husband, Taylor Swift, her legal team. She does not care. Imagine being so flirtatious and inappropriate that you'll take everybody down with you to not look like the person that you truly are. How mental and demented is that? You will take down everybody around you, innocent victims standing around you, because you won't be who you really are, which is a cheater. And maybe they were just in emotional cheating, an emotional affair, may have not been physical. But the problem is, Blake Lively was having an emotional affair with Justin Baldoni. They were inappropriate with one another on the set of It Ends With Us. Blake Lively then went to tell everyone that she was harassed because she could not tell her husband that she was flirting. How sick is this? This is really, really inappropriate. This is beyond inappropriate. Instead of saying, yes, husband, I was flirting, I would rather say, look, world, he's harassing me. Wow. You take down this man in front of the entire world and all of Hollywood, all of his colleagues, producers, writers, actors. Like, I'm blown away. Instead of simply telling that one man, your husband, Ryan Reynolds, yes, I was flirting. But Ryan Reynolds knew, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not going to give anybody on Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively's team, other than their legal team, the innocence. They are not afforded any level of innocence in this because they all knew what they were doing. Maybe the legal team didn't, but the way that this TikToker Be Better is presenting all of this information is that she even lied to her legal team, telling the legal team that she presented a list of demands to continue working on set that was 30 items long in the list. But in fact, that's not even true. That's not even true. So Blake Lively, not on she's a liar, but they call her plantation princess. This is a horrible person. We've seen other TikToks in which she's made fun of interviewers. The girl is not right. And again, this information is only my opinion and not factual. This is all alleged and not proven in any way. So let's just keep going and see how much more trouble Plantation Princess Blake Lively gets herself into.
When she was breastfeeding and smelling her hair and bringing up porn and all of those really, really messy stuff, that actually isn't what was agreed to in the meeting. So there was a 17-point list that was some of the more generic things that they agreed to because it was already in the contracts. And then there was a 30-point list that she wrote after the fact that nobody ever saw, but then she included in the lawsuit to make it seem like they agreed to that, which is actually like definitely grounds for defamation.
Her She's so careless that Justin Baldoni could return with a defamation lawsuit that can wipe her and her husband out. She's so reckless, so careless, and such. I don't even know what you would call a woman like this. I don't even know what you can call a woman like this. I want to know, how do you get through life being this type of person? Anyway, let's just keep going because we have a lot to get through. This is just part 2, y'all. Stay with me because we just sipping, gossiping. And if you have a comment, please leave it in the chat. I'm definitely watching the comments. All right, let's keep going. So we're at the part where she faked to her lawyer that she presented a list of demands when she, in fact, did not present a list of demands. So she's lied to the lawyer, lied to her husband, defamed Justin Baldoni, ruined her relationship with Taylor Swift, and she's just a piece of work. Let's keep going.
Because it really is that misleading. I hope that I did a good enough job explaining why that's so significant. Then the next 30 pages, you guys know, just sort of details all the screenshots of the editors, the producers, the castmates. What it really does is it paints a picture of Blake Lively, sort of everybody treating her the way that they treated Meryl Streep in The Devil Wears Prada. As soon as she walks in, everybody's bending over backwards for her. They're giving her the dailies. They're letting her have the producer credits. They're letting her edit the movie. They're just completely bending over backwards for her because she was constantly threatening to destroy everybody's reputation and not market the film. So it definitely does a good job of lending credence to the claim that she tried to take over the film. Another piece of evidence that is very damning to Blake Lively and wasn't in the original lawsuit that Justin Baldoni filed, which is why I said I wanted to see proof of this, is they do in fact have proof that they screen tested both Justin Baldoni's version of the film as well as Blake Lively's version of the film with an audience, and they scored his significantly higher, 20% higher, rated his film as excellent versus Blake Lively's version. And significantly, the only group that it polled well with was actually men, which is not the target audience for this film. Need I remind you, since it's become completely lost, that this film was about domestic violence and was a film for women. So Justin Baldoni kind of rightfully used this as evidence that they should have used his version of the film. But Blake Lively reneged on her promise and insisted that her version be released to the public instead of Baldoni's cut, even claiming that the book's author, Colleen Hoover, would refuse to promote the film as well if Blake Lively's version was not chosen. Okay, you guys know these pages. Basically, he was shunned from the film. He had a spinal cord injury. He was in the hospital. He was sent to the basement for his own premiere, which is pretty terrible. And then another significant aspect is Blake Lively was adamant about getting the PGA designation mark. So this is a coveted producer credit that is taken very seriously in Hollywood. So the only reason that I think that Blake Lively wanted this so bad is I believe that she possibly thought that she was going to receive an Oscar for this film, if not for Best Actress, which is hilarious. She would never obviously get that. But if the film was nominated for Best Picture, the producers are the ones that receive the Oscar. So if she has the PGA credit, that's a huge thing for her resume to have an Oscar. So I think that's the reason why she had that. And then ultimately, when they said no, that's when she messaged them and said, any goodwill between us is done. So that was her red line. After, they still capitulated to her and eventually gave her the PGA credit, but apparently it wasn't enough for Blake. After seemingly getting literally everything that she wanted, according to these receipts, and she still decided to make this public. Another piece of this lawsuit that I think most people missed is a very subtle Taylor Swift call out here. So listen to this. The other cast members also unfollowed Baldoni, creating the false impression that Baldoni had done something wrong. Lively was leaving what she had earlier referred to as crumbs, a social media strategy she had learned from a close celebrity friend to give fans just enough to allow them to come to their own conclusions, thereby launching an army of detectives that, on information and belief, Lively hoped would turn against Baldoni. So they're alleging that Lively orchestrated this and sort of left the breadcrumbs. I think that's an obvious reference to Taylor Swift, who is known to sort of leave little hints and unfollow people and do this and that because she knows she's under such a microscope. She can do the tiniest little thing to completely shift the narrative in such a dramatic way. Now, you might be wondering, but why did Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds care so much about taking over this film? And I think the obvious explanation is that they wanted the rights to the sequel. It was a commercial success. I believe that Blake Lively saw how successful Deadpool was and wanted to emulate that and thought that this was her moment. And she used her husband's power of owning his own production company to extort the rest of the cast members into complying because they wanted to be part of the sequel. Okay, welcome to part. Well, my friends, if you can believe it, it has only been 24 hours, and the tea today is actually even hotter than it was yesterday. So, as I'm sure many of you are already aware, as you've been spamming me in my DMs, yes, it is true. Justin Baldoni's lawyer has released the full footage of the alleged incident where Justin Baldoni supposedly sexually harassed Blake Lively. Now, I don't feel the need to tell you guys what to think because you're the jury. This is a courtroom. Let's just go through the evidence together, and you're all welcome to come to your own conclusions because the facts don't lie. So, in Blake Lively's lawsuit, this is how she described the situation. And then I'm going to show you the footage of what actually happened and allow you guys to discern whether or not her portrayal of.
Okay, guys, before we get into the footage that he's about to show, I want you to try to follow along with what he's saying. He's saying that Blake Lively said one thing happened when they were close up and he was able to smell her hair or her skin. What actually happened is, of course, in the footage that you're about to see. Just try to clear your mind and think of what she said versus what you hear in the footage. And then that will help you determine if she was just rewriting history to really annihilate this guy. All right, so let's keep going.
That was accurate or not. On another occasion, Mr. Baldoni and Miss Lively were filming a slow dance scene for a montage in which no sound was recorded. Narrator chimes in, sound was recorded. Mr. Baldoni chose to let the camera roll and have them perform the scene, but did not act in character as Ryle. Instead, he spoke to Miss Lively out of character as himself. At one point, he leaned forward and slowly dragged his lips from her ear down her neck as he said, "It smells so good." None of this was remotely in character or based on any dialogue in the script, and nothing needed to be said because, again, there was no sound. Mr. Baldoni was caressing Miss Lively with his mouth in a way that had nothing to do with their roles, and when Miss Lively later objected to this behavior, Miss Baldoni's response was, "I'm not even attracted to you." Wait a second. Blake Lively made a mistake in her lawsuit. It says Miss Baldoni's response. So unless she's referring to Justin Baldoni's wife, I think they meant to write Mr. Baldoni. Are you guys not even gonna spell check your lawsuit? Wow, that's really embarrassing. Wow, that's actually crazy that I just noticed that. So anyway, let's watch what really happened. I'm old-fashioned. I don't do editing, so here's my laptop. Let's score another. If you should I'm probably getting breakfast. Well, it's not bad. It's my body makeup. That's it. So I think that we can all agree that Blake Lively's characterization of this interaction was not accurate, and I'm still not over the fact that her team made a typo in such an important and consequential lawsuit. Seriously, like what little respect I had for you guys is completely.
Now I understand him saying he doesn't have respect for Blake Lively's team, but what I will tell you is that it's even worse. It's even worse. It's even worse. She said that he caressed her with his lips. He said she smells so good, but in fact, she was the one to first reference, "I'm probably getting my spray tanner all over you." There was no lip caressing. So what they're doing right now in that scene you just saw is what's called like B-roll. So they can put voiceover over it or music over it. As you can see, they were just dancing. So it was a romantic scene. They're just grabbing some B-roll that they may use later, or it may end up on the floor of the cutting room. But what you're seeing is that Justin is mic'd up all the time. So Blake is reporting these false accusations, but there's always a camera and a microphone. So while her and her husband were in turn trying to destroy this man with lies and lies and lies, Justin Baldoni and his team created a lawsuit and filed a response that's almost 300 pages long, including text messages, including video, including audio, including B-roll. And I'm trying to understand, other than as this Be Better Company describes, that she was just a bully who wanted the movie to herself because maybe she was in competition with her husband. But I'm sick. I'm sick by all of this. This is too much. She is such a vile person. Let's keep going because I'm getting upset just watching it. I'm going to play it for y'all. I'm going to just let it run through until I have something really important to say. But Justin Baldoni is so lucky that he has mic and cameras, mics and cameras around him with this violent. Because when you accuse somebody of harassment and assault like this, that's an act of violence, because you know what it'll do to his career, his freedom, his reputation, financially. He could be shunned from Hollywood, and you did all this in greed for something that you have no right to. This is an act of violence. I don't understand. I'm so confused. But let's keep going. I'm gonna be quiet. Y'all just keep watching.
Completely gone. However, since I'm me and I'm an asshole and I have no loyalty to these people whatsoever, my only loyalty is to the truth. I would also like to point out there is something that is not fully accurate in Justin's recount of this interaction as well. In Justin's lawsuit, and this is minor, but I noticed it because nothing gets past me. They say Lively apologized for the smell of her spray tan and body makeup. Baldoni responded, "It smells good." Blake Lively never apologized for the smell of her spray tan. She just said, "I'm getting my spray tan on you." She didn't say anything about the smell. So regardless, this interaction is uncomfortable and awkward to watch because acting is a very uncomfortable job to have. But I definitely don't think any of this constitutes harassment. Now, Blake Lively's legal team has actually already responded to the public disclosure of this footage being released. And they stated, Justin Baldoni and his lawyer may hope that this latest stunt will get ahead of the very damning evidence against him. But the video itself is damning. Every frame of the released footage corroborates to the letter what Miss Lively described in her complaint. Every moment of this was improvised by Mr. Baldoni with no discussion or consent. They then go on to say that while they are focused on misleading media narratives, we are focused on the legal process. We are continuing our efforts to require Mr. Baldoni and his associates to answer in court under oath rather than through manufactured media stunts. Blake, if by some miracle you're watching this, just understand, the lawyers don't care about you. Lawyers don't care. They just want to get paid. They're getting paid a shit ton of money, whether or not you win or you lose. You need to talk to somebody that actually cares about you. And if someone in your life actually cared about you, they probably would have told you to just drop this, because your attempt to rehabilitate your reputation is massively backfiring. People had already moved on, honestly. Like, no one was talking about you anymore. And this is just not looking good. If this does go to court and it becomes another Amber Heard situation, another Gwyneth Paltrow situation, okay, the Gwyneth Paltrow one was funny, but I just don't think it's going to go your way. And the reason that I think this is Justin Baldoni's lawyer has actually just responded to that response already. This is all in the same day. And Justin Baldoni's lawyer has stated that he is putting together a website as we speak where they're planning to upload every single text message that they have between these two, every single piece of evidence, and every single piece of video footage from that set. So if the facts are not 100% on your side, Blake, which they seem to not be, the last thing you want is to go through an entire discovery process and have every single email, every single text, every single piece of video footage microanalyzed by TikTokers, don't do it. Run. Settle, drop it, and move on with your family and your life. Hello? Control room? Got it. So we are just getting word that Colleen Hoover has officially jumped ship. If you guys remember, Colleen Hoover, the original author of this book, actually came to Blake Lively's defense publicly. And after the backlash, she has completely deleted her Instagram account. So I would not count on Colleen Hoover supporting you anymore. And as public perception steadily shifts against Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, I am starting to expect all the people who were defending them publicly to start dropping like flies. So again, I just don't think it's in Blake Lively's best interest to go to court and have this entire thing be televised. But if my understanding of human psychology is correct, I think that they've dug themselves too deep, that I don't see them settling. I think that they'll probably end up going to court and just ruining what little goodwill they have left. There's also a section of the video where Blake Lively tells Justin Baldoni that he should get a rhinoplasty and then says, just kidding.
So nosy. I know. And my nose is so big.
I was hoping that you could address this. It's not too late. Just gotta shut down. We're gonna call an insurance month and just deal with that.
Yeah.
And then
God.
just kidding.
No, it's true. That's why we hired Jenny Slate too. Our nose is.
He says that's why we hired Jenny Slate too. Our noses match is what he says. I don't think that he was being insulting, to be honest, when he said our noses match. That's just a fact. It is a fact. He has a larger nose, and Jenny Slate has that more pointy, a little bit of a larger nose. I don't think that's bad. I don't think having a large nose is a bad or a good thing. It's just an observation. And I actually think it's fair. It does kind of make them look more like siblings because it's a pretty physically defining characteristic. So here's what I think is happening. I think that Justin Baldoni's lawyer is being so brazen because he has seen the evidence and he understands that there is a mountain of it that substantiates Justin Baldoni's side much more significantly than it does Blake Lively's. I think that he wants it to go to court, and I think that he's sort of
Okay, thank you all for hanging out. I want to get into something in part 4 that is really, really big. In part 4, we learn, well, we knew as the public, but in his description of the breakdown of the lawsuit, what he's going to describe next is that Blake Lively, and maybe in cahoots with her husband, Ryan Reynolds, had gone to the New York Times previously before the lawsuit, months before, and started giving them evidence of her being harassed. She was still on set. She was still working. Nobody had any idea this was happening. And the reason that she was caught in bed, quote unquote, with the New York Times is because somebody looked up the metadata of the screenshots that the New York Times embedded in their article. So if you're not familiar with what I'm saying, when you have a website and you drop a picture, that picture is then what's called embedded in the website page, in the web page. But that picture, almost like your iPhone, it has data about where it's from, when it was delivered, when it was accepted by your phone or emailed, whatever. There's a lot of data when you send a text message or anything else. The New York Times was in bed with Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds to destroy Justin Baldoni. Let's talk about
I've never
that.
been more scared in my entire life that my account could actually get deleted. So if you're watching this right now and my account mysteriously disappears, I need you guys to know.
But I need to find this. Hold on. I did not save this. So I gotta go back. It is, oh, where is it? Where is it? He has on the green sweater. This is the best part of it all. And then we can kind of fly through the rest, guys. So this is my favorite part because he actually tells us when the metadata was, oh, is it still there? I have it saved on my phone, but I don't see it on his website. So I wonder if someone or TikTok made him take it down. Oh no, it's okay. Wait, no. Here it is. Here it is. Here it
Okay,
is.
you need
Let's
to
go. Let's
stop
go. Let's
what
go.
you're doing immediately because
Okay. I'm going back. I'm going to give it to you. Don't worry. I'm getting out of the way. I know y'all are like, get out of the way. I'm getting out of the way. Here we go.
I think I just discovered something in the Blake Lively Justin Baldoni fiasco that could be breaking news. So, if you guys have been paying attention, you would know that people have been freaking out because they investigated the metadata of the New York Times article and discovered that things were embedded at around December 10th. And in other words, this means that the New York Times was working on the article weeks before the lawsuit was ever filed, which suggests that Lively colluded with them to put together the article. When I heard this, I was like, duh, that's not surprising because the article was published the same day that the complaint was filed. So obviously they didn't just whip it up in a couple hours. They obviously were working on it for an extended period of time. I'm like, it doesn't make the New York Times look great, but I didn't think it was like breaking news. So I looked into the source code. I think that's what it's called myself. And I found out that when you look at the metadata for the embedded articles, specifically this image, the one of the text messages, you can see that it was actually embedded on October 31st. And if you look to the side, it says message embed generator. And I think what that means is it's some kind of an app that they use to make these texts look prettier. So you can see these texts are real in the sense of the words that they actually said, but they're not direct screenshots. So they were sort of Photoshop them to make them look more legitimate, if that makes sense. So if this is true, and you guys can please correct me because I am not a tech savvy person at all. So maybe I'm getting this wrong, but the date clearly says October 31st. So doesn't that mean that they were working on the article as early as October 31st? And if that's the case, the reason why that's so scary is because it means that the New York Times was actually colluding for months, which sort of furthers the narrative that this article may have been the real smear campaign. I don't know. I could be wrong, so don't crucify me if I'm wrong, but this is just what I discovered. Okay, you need to stop what you're doing immediately because I think I just discovered something in the Blake Lively Justin Baldoni fiasco that could be breaking news.
Isn't that crazy? For months, Blake Lively, after flirting with this man, having an inappropriate relationship on set, having him around her children, was colluding with the New York Times to make it look even worse for Justin Baldoni. I am so annoyed and so mind blown that this is what her and her husband were up to. All because they were greedy and she was in competition with her husband after flirting with another man. She only wanted rights to the movie. And everybody that she thought would defend her, who isn't Ryan Reynolds, has pulled out. Of course, other than her lawyers, as he stated, lawyers are there just to get paid, girl. They want your money. This young lady has made the worst decisions.
Okay, so I promised myself that I wouldn't continue to discuss this case unless there was some kind of new bombshell information. And ladies and gentlemen, there is officially.
Okay, so let's go back into it. Looks like we have some updates. So I'm going to get off screen because you guys, I don't want you to start yelling at me and telling me I'm in the way. So here we go.
New bombshell information. So, as promised, Justin Baldoni's lawyer has released a website with all of the receipts and many things I've never seen before. So, I printed off everything. I went through it. I'm going to take you guys through it with me. And not only did I print off every single receipt and read it myself, but I also dedicated hours of my life to reading and finishing this book. And if you know anything about me, you know how much I hate fiction novels, especially books like this. But it was important for me to fully immerse myself in the story and specifically immerse myself in the mind of Colleen Hoover, which is kind of a scary place if you ask me. but it helped a lot to contextualize the entire situation, and all of the pieces are finally starting to come together. So wherever you are, grab a bag of popcorn, get your favorite snack, because we have a lot of material to go through. I would just like to say I do not get paid for my content. I've never made $1 from TikTok, and I've now spent about 80 hours of my precious short time here on earth reading this garbage for you guys. So at the very least, you got to follow me. And I also think I deserve a Pulitzer Prize, but that's a whole other story. So here's the tea. Justin Baldoni's lawyer, Brian Friedman, has amended and refiled his lawsuit to include some receipts that we didn't have before. He particularly noted something that I discovered in my video, which was the October 31st date in the embedded image of the New York Times article. There seems to be some debate over who found it first. I obviously think that I did, but it really does not matter. This has been one collective group project, group effort. And the thing that matters is that Brian Friedman is actually watching our videos and changing his lawsuits in real time. He actually publicly admitted that he's starting to include evidence found by us. The New York Times actually responded to Brian Friedman and called us amateur sleuths who are incorrect. So I guess we'll see who's right and who's wrong. But I just personally love to see legacy media like the New York Times freak out, because people would rather watch random people like me with no law degree talk about topics in my bedroom because they trust I'm being honest, as opposed to these huge mainstream media organizations which are progressively losing power and credibility in the eyes of regular people. And I just personally love to see that. And now that I know that Brian Friedman is watching my videos, I have a message for him. Brian, if the reason that you win this historic $400 million lawsuit with the New York Times is because of the October 31st date that you admitted was discovered by us, number one, you better share that money with us. And number two, I would like a spot in that courtroom. I don't know what needs to happen, but you got to get me on the list. You guys have to back me up. I want to be there reporting live when it happens. I've invested so much time into this. So whatever needs to happen, we got to make it happen. So one of the most important and new pieces of information that we have are text messages between Justin Baldoni and Ryan Reynolds. And the reason why they matter is because it gives us some insight into, number one, how Justin Baldoni was interfacing with them behind the scenes, and number two, how Ryan Reynolds also acts in real life when he's not, doesn't think a camera's in front of him. So we have the text messages here. They're a little bit blurry, but Justin Baldoni basically says something to the effect of how much he absolutely loves Ryan Reynolds, completely groveling at his feet, kissing the ground that he walks on. It's honestly a little bit embarrassing. How he wanted to message him earlier, but he was too nervous. And he says literally, and I quote, "I don't really have a lot of close female friends that aren't also close with my wife, let alone married ones." And so I guess this is just an awkward text to say, "I'd like to be friends." And then he says, "I'm happy there's no check yes or no box." This guy is like so corny. I originally thought he was super fake because I'm like, no one actually acts like this in real life. I think he's almost so earnest. It's physically painful for other people to deal with because it's so rare in Hollywood. He's literally like a little boy just saying, "Hey, I want to be friends," and clearly capitulating to Ryan, just saying like, "I'm not trying to step on any toes here by talking to your wife every day and not introducing myself to you." It's a little bit bizarre on both their ends. I feel like it's giving like 19.
So I'm sorry to drop in, but I just wanted to read the comment that I got. The first one from Lost Peasant saying it's confusing that they say the video corroborates her complaints, but at the same time, they were worried it will influence the jury. That's right, because I think that Blake Lively's team is able to get ahead of Justin Baldoni's team just because of the money, the access, the power, and that her and her husband have. The influence they have will allow them to get public perception on their side. But if they go to court, that's why they're worried about the jury, because the jury will see what's truly in the videos. So what's truly been said. Blake Lively and her team can put out whatever they want to the public. And then your next comment, I wanted to show that as well. You're saying some are saying that Blake might drop the SA charges, but keep the smear one so they could settle on that charge. The problem with that is that Justin Baldoni can respond with defamation. And I think that's where Blake and her husband are nervous. I would be nervous because they've done the smear campaign, fine. But even if you drop SA, and he's not convicted or he never goes to trial for SA, he can still sue you for the allegation that went public, right? So I guess we're all just waiting, sitting ducks, waiting to see what her next move is because she just looks so bad. But thank you for commenting. I hope you like the page and I hope you enjoy my content. And all of you, be sure to subscribe while you're watching. Let's get back to the juice.
1950s husband, like, hey, is it okay if I talk to your wife? But regardless, it was a very nice message. So Ryan Reynolds then waits a few days, possibly a week, before responding to this message with an absolute essay of his own. We're talking like 4 pages here. And in it, he speaks in vivid detail about a few things, particularly about how Justin Baldoni is extremely lucky and how he's won the lottery with having someone like Blake Lively be a part of this film. I would like to note Blake Lively was paid $3 million for a film with a $25 million budget, which means her salary accounted for 12% of the entire budget of the film, which is pretty substantial. I don't know if I'd call that winning the lottery. I'd call that fulfilling a job. And she was also only working for 6 months. So I think that's a pretty good deal for both of them, if you ask me. But regardless, he also goes on to detail and accredit Blake Lively as being the creative force behind every successful business decision he's ever made. And then in the very end, we get into what Ryan Reynolds really wanted. So he says, I'd have your line producer's face tattooed to my perineum. I'm not going to elaborate what that body part is, but it's pretty inappropriate. If he, she, or they can figure out how to start 2 weeks earlier. So previously, he sort of discussed how his schedules weren't lining up properly, and this was the first time that Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds were going to be away from the kids at the same time. And in terms of scheduling, it would have been very beneficial to him if Blake Lively could end 2 weeks earlier so she could be home with the kids, and was basically willing to do anything. He ends the message as saying, I happen to adore you, Justin. XOXO. What kind of 50-year-old heterosexual man messages another man XOXO? Gossip Girl, like, what? Is that weird to me, or am I just being like, I think that's weird, but regardless, it seemed like he was really trying to do anything to alter the schedule. That's not really typical for actors to be able to do that, but Ryan Reynolds is obviously aware that he has a lot of referent power with this person who's expressed and worn his heart on his sleeve as saying he worships him, and maybe took a little bit of advantage of that. So if we fast forward to August of 2024, there was definitely no XOXO happening because we got a glimpse of the statement that Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds demanded Justin Baldoni release. Otherwise, in their words, the gloves were going to come off. So they demanded that he put this statement out that said, Blake Lively, Colleen Hoover, and the entire cast led with professionalism, and any negativity directed toward them is ours to own. He then goes on to say, we hold ourselves accountable. It's not anyone's job but ours, and that is part of being man enough. Now, it's a little bit disturbing knowing that Ryan Reynolds wrote this because he's using the book title that Justin Baldoni wrote called Man Enough against him. And specifically, the holding myself accountable part and owning your mistakes is something that Justin Baldoni specifically said in that voice note that we all heard. So could it be possible that retroactively or in the future, Ryan Reynolds heard that voice note and then wanted to weaponize it against him and use it as a final way to say F you? Because I don't think it's a coincidence that he sort of took a direct quote from the voice note and then also trying to weaponize his own book against him. Releasing the statement would have been a career ender because more than likely Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively wouldn't have stopped. They would have continued. And then people would have said, what does this message mean? Because if you guys remember, rewind to August, Blake Lively was being criticized for things that she did. She was being criticized for advertising an alcohol company and a hair care brand that had absolutely nothing to do with the source material of the book. So what exactly are they taking ownership for? It being a troubled set? People weren't really talking about that. So they would have kept digging and then likely would have continued with the sexual harassment allegations. And then this would have been an admission of guilt. In looking at the evidence, I also found something very bizarre I wanted to run past you guys. So on April 25th, this was the day that Justin Baldoni visited the Penthouse and was verbally berated by Ryan Reynolds for fat shaming Blake Lively. We now know fat shaming really just meant that he inquired about her weight so he could lift her for a scene that was definitely in the film because we have proof of that. But he profusely apologized. Blake Lively basically said, it's my way or the highway. And only 2 days later, on April 27th, Blake Lively personally invited Justin Baldoni on her private jet with her and her children to fly to Los Angeles so they could, number one, work on the script together, hours there and hours back, and also so Justin Baldoni could see his wife and kids who were in Los Angeles and who he missed. Could it be that Blake Lively felt guilty that Ryan overstepped and verbally berated Justin, so she extended an olive branch to him in the form of inviting him on the plane? And how did Ryan feel that 2 days after he basically accused this guy of being a creep, inquiring about his wife's weight, that he then went on a plane alone with his wife and his children? Okay, I'm running out of time, but we have so much more to go through. I'm working on putting everything together, so stay tuned for updates. Okay, so if you thought you were having a bad day today, I would like to personally assure you that it is exponentially better than Blake Lively's, because she has just discovered that she is being sued again for defamation again by a man named Jed Wallace. And don't worry, guys, this time it's only for $6 million. So at this point, that's like a walk in the park for her. On today's episode, we also, for the very first time, have a Be Better exclusive. I have my first exclusive inside source that I think is pretty explosive. So I'm excited to share that with you guys. So as always, grab a snack, take a seat, because it's going to be another long night. So as I just mentioned, Blake Lively is now being sued by a man named Jed Wallace. You might be thinking, Be Better, who the hell is Jed Wallace? I'm going to tell you. So if we go back to Blake Lively's original complaint, one of the more explosive allegations was what she said about this mysterious subcontractor from Texas. She said, they also retained subcontractors, including a Texas-based contractor named Jed Wallace, who weaponized a digital army around the country from New York to Los Angeles to create, seed, and promote content that appeared to be authentic on social media platforms and internet chat forums. So something very important to note is this original filing that we all saw in the New York Times article was not a lawsuit. It was a complaint filed with the California Civil Rights Department. And these are administrative filings that are not typically made public. So what Jed Wallace's lawyer is alleging is that Lively weaponized this administrative filing, submitted it to all of these media outlets, and specifically the New York Times. And in doing that, he was falsely lumped into all of these horrible allegations of sexual harassment and a smear campaign that he says he had no part of. And as a result of that, has lost millions and millions of dollars through his public relations business. So something very important that I noticed in reviewing this is very shortly after Lively's legal team filed the real lawsuit after the complaint, the entire Jed Wallace storyline was completely excluded from it. So what I'm curious about is if these allegations were true and Jed Wallace was really the mastermind behind the orchestration of the smear campaign, why was he excluded? And I think the reason may be that they were hoping that these allegations would simply stop at this complaint and they wouldn't have to investigate it further. But when they had to actually go the real route of true litigation, they knew that the facts didn't really substantiate this story, because Jed Wallace is now saying he's never engaged in a smear campaign with Lively, he has never met her, and basically has no idea what's going on. So at this point, Blake Lively's legal team has already responded to this new lawsuit and has stated that this is simply a continuation of the smear campaign and an act of retaliation for the sexual harassment. I would again state that Jed Wallace has never met Blake Lively, so I'm not sure how Lively's team believes that you can sexually harass someone you've never met. But at this point, it seems like they're accusing everybody. I'm worried they're going to accuse me. They're going to accuse you. You get accused of sexual harassment. You get a car. You get accused. Like, you know what I'm saying? So something else I wanted to bring up with you guys, because I did end up reading this book, is what I didn't know is at the end of it, there's a note from the author where Colleen Hoover explains that the characters of Lily and Ryle are actually based off of her parents, and Lily is deeply inspired by her mother, and her mother ended up leaving an abusive relationship. It was very heartfelt. And for a moment when I read that, I was like, oh, wow, you know what? This makes a little bit more sense to me. I understand why, even though I thought this was an awful book, why it meant a lot to women that read it specifically. And then I was reminded of this email that Colleen Hoover sent to Justin Baldoni in 2019. So 6 years ago, she was talking about potentially selling the rights to Justin. And she said, my biggest fear is that I'll sell the rights to someone who thinks it's a rom-com and they'll take it in the absolute wrong direction. You can't write this. And now we have to move on to the infamous personal trainer. So as I'm sure you guys remember, the reason this entire fat shaming debacle happened is because Justin Baldoni inquired about Blake Lively's weight to Blake Lively's personal trainer, who was also training Justin Baldoni at the time, which we know because we have several receipts that prove that. So this personal trainer, his name has been revealed as Don Saladino, celebrity personal trainer guy. He had a photo up of his wife along with Ryan and Blake Lively, and he edited the caption. I want to read to you guys what he said. He said, "There have been negative comments on this post, negative comments sent to my wife, and believe it or not, negative comments sent to my children. To be clear, Justin Baldoni is not my client. I created a complimentary program for him as a favor to a client, Blake. I've never trained him virtually or in person. I never met him in person. We communicated via calls and texts from January to March 2023. I could not accommodate his schedule and found him a coach. After an uncomfortable conversation, asking about Blake Lively's weight, communications ended." So there's two main reasons why I don't trust this personal trainer. Number one, I think it's very childish for an adult to come up to you and ask you a very reasonable question like, hey, how much does Blake Lively weigh so I can adequately train my back muscles to lift her? And then for you to go and run to Blake.
Hey, it's me, LA. Hi, Melanie. Thank you, babe, for the comment. Hey, girl. I really wanted to hop in right here because there's a fat shaming allegation that is part of the harassment suit. And she tried to spin it. Blake Lively, who is, I'm sorry, she might be the devil in the flesh. Blake Lively tried to spin it as if Justin Baldoni was asking about her weight to fat shame her, when it's been pointed out and proven with medical records that he has a back injury. So he asked her weight so that him and his personal trainer could train him for any lifts, any movements, any bedroom activities that he may need to do with Blake. So while he's training for his role, they can use an appropriate stand-in, an appropriate double at his gym or with his personal trainer. She then turns this into, he's asking about my weight to shame me. And the guy that he's reporting who posted that Justin asked him an inappropriate question is Blake and Ryan's personal trainer, who's absolutely going to be biased, who's going to make more money from Blake and Ryan if he stays loyal to them. But then to make it seem like this guy was a creep and asking her weight when you knew why he was asking the weight is so weird. And to run back and tell Blake was so unprofessional. And he knew, let me get off this screen and play this because I'm getting upset. We only have a few more minutes and a few more plays left, but I do want to also acknowledge that a lot of Be Better's information also comes from Candace Owens. Yes, that Candace Owens. She has been following this lawsuit. So if you follow Candace Owens or if you're interested in more information, I'm going to build my description box. I'll be sure to link that Be Better's TikTok account. I'll be sure to link where you can find Candace Owens and her reviews of this lawsuit. But it's very, very, it's all so interesting. Let's keep going. We'll finish up this video. And I think there are 2 more parts, if I'm not mistaken, but we'll be out of here soon. And you'll have all the details you need to know about Plantation Princess, Blake Lively, her husband, Deadpool, and Justin Baldoni. Let's keep going.
To Blake Lively, who you know is insecure about her postpartum body, and say, Justin Baldoni asked how much you weighed and he fat shamed you, but you didn't hear from me. That is so Regina George coded and not a way that an adult behaves, in my opinion. And number 2, a very quick Google search will show that if you go on his website, I'm looking at it now, the main programs he sells are workout programs with Deadpool, Ryan Reynolds, and Blake Lively. So he's obviously benefiting financially from their friendship. I'll show it to you guys right now. So I think that's hardly a neutral, unbiased source to be getting our information from. Like, honestly, what was his motivation with telling Blake Lively what Justin Baldoni had asked? I think it was probably to further his friendship with her by throwing someone else under the bus. And it reminds me of like being in high school and then your friend comes up to you and they're like, listen, I didn't want to have to tell you this, but Jake thinks that you're a fat, ugly fuck, but you didn't hear it from me. I'm only telling you because I'm your friend and I want you to know. You know that person's telling you that to make you feel like shit, but they're doing it to be like, oh, but we're friends, so I just had to disclose this information to you. That's what it's giving. Now, in my investigation, I also came across some information that I think is very, very damning. So we all know that Brandon Sklenar was one of the first people to come out and publicly back Blake Lively, right? Okay, hold that in your mind. What happened next? Then Blake Lively starred in the sequel to A Simple Favor 2 with a guy named Michelle Morone. This is the star basically from the movie 365 Days. He also came out and publicly backed her. This director of A Simple Favor 2 is Paul Feig, who also came out and publicly backed Blake Lively just today. And then guess what? It's just been announced that both Brandon Sklenar and Michelle Morone are casted in the new movie The Housemaid. And guess who the director is? It's Paul Feig. The same director has casted them, who are really not that famous at all, especially Brandon Sklenar. He was a total nobody before It Ends With Us. And now they've both been rewarded for this movie by Paul Feig, which is adapted from a book. So it seems like Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively have pulled their strings and have already rewarded the people who have come out and publicly supported them. Now, as if this story couldn't have gotten any crazier, we have a ghost visiting us from Christmas past. Do you guys remember the disgraced lawyer named Elaine from the Amber Heard trial, who was quite possibly one of the worst lawyers I've ever seen publicly argue a case in my entire life? She is back and seemingly publicly auditioning to be the newest member of Blake Lively's legal team with one of the dumbest takes I have ever seen. Let's take a look at what she said.
In New York, as does Florida, they have anti-SLAPP litigation, and New York has really strengthened theirs. If you retaliate like Justin Baldoni has here with his lawsuit, because she has spoken out on a matter of public concern, which certainly sexual harassment is, he is in danger of getting his case dismissed.
So what Elaine very stupidly missed in her analysis is that these anti-SLAPP laws exist in New York State, but this case is in federal court. So it doesn't apply. Everything she said was 100% categorically false. I have no idea where she got her law degree from, but you know what, Elaine? You join Blake Lively's legal team. Don't let them tell you no. I don't know about you guys. I want to see her join that team. I want to see her for part 2 in the courtroom. Get Elaine in the courtroom. Woo! And now, hey, so if you guys are watching this right now, I'd like to let you know that Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds have successfully gotten a video I posted last night taken down. More specifically, they got it banned in the United States because that's where they have their connections with TikTok US. You might be wondering, how do I know it was them? Because 2 weeks ago, someone from TikTok had notified me that their team had reported my account for misinformation and attempted to get my account deleted. But because I've never actually broken any TikTok rules and have been very fair in my reporting, they were unable to do so. So you might be wondering, what exactly was it about the video posted last night specifically that was so explosive they needed to get it scrubbed from the internet in just a few hours? And the answer to that is it's the first time I ever spoke to an exclusive inside source who told me something about the legal battle that clearly Blake and Ryan so desperately do not want the public to know. Otherwise, why are they attempting to censor me? Additionally, I'm progressively beginning to believe what I reported on is true. Otherwise, they would not be trying so hard to silence me. I think it is so pathetic that Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds put together this BS lawsuit about how people are trying to manipulate public perception because their egos cannot even conceive of a world where anybody could dislike them, when in reality, they're the ones manipulating public perception by censoring people like me. So I'm officially seeking legal representation to sue Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds myself for infringing on my freedom of speech. And if
Baby, listen, follow my channel, share the video, keep coming back because I am going to listen, I don't ever want to be sick like I was a few days ago, but me laying in bed is the reason girl, Melanie, me either. She should be shamed from public. She should be, remember when oh, no, listen, I'm not going to say that, but she should be shamed from public. She should never show her face on a screen again. I mean, a TV screen, a telephone screen, a YouTube screen, a desktop, a laptop, an iPad. She should never show her face in public again. Shamed from public. And let me tell you something. I can't believe how sick I was the other day. But listen, this is the only reason I'm able to bring you this tea on YouTube, baby, and Facebook, because it is so good. Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds are the same person. ego, bravado, callousness, and violence in a cute, slim, tall, blonde body. They are the same person. They are the same person. This is, ooh, I am so, listen, I'm the only one I'm back. I'm back on YouTube and I'm going to bring you continuous tea. Please share the video, like the video, comment, subscribe, and turn on your notifications. I am going, listen, whatever he had taken off the internet, I'm going to bring it to you tonight. Whatever was taken off the internet, I might not get the full video, but I am going to scrub those comments to see what was said from that inside source about that lawsuit. I'm going to bring that to you and don't you miss it. I'm so excited, but we're pushing this video to the limit. So let's keep going. He is pissed and I am excited.
And if TikTok does not reinstate this video in the next 12 hours, I will be adding them to the lawsuit as well. So in the meantime, you guys can watch this banned video on my YouTube channel. I'll put the link in my bio. And I need someone to connect me with Brian Friedman's team immediately because I have some very important information to share with him. I'm sure he would love to have. Hey.
Power is a curious thing, my lord. Are you fond of riddles?
Why? Am I about to hear one?
3 great men sit in a room. A king, a priest, and a rich man.
Okay, so I literally don't care what you're doing right now. If you're driving, pull over. If you're at a funeral, go home. Because I have some earth-shattering updates to share with you in the ongoing Lively Baldoni saga. So, what's going on?
I hope y'all ready.
Right
I'm
now,
so excited.
Lively and Baldoni's legal teams are sort of competing for the attention and trying to get on the judge's good side by going through all these administrative stuff that you have to go through when you're filing lawsuits. But before I get into the details of exactly what their respective legal teams are saying, I do have to start on a positive note and congratulate Blake Lively, who has just come out as a lesbian. Because as I was reading Michael Gottlieb's letter, who is Blake Lively's lawyer, of course, to Judge Lehman, I noticed that he wrote that Miss Lively and Miss Reynolds need until March 20th to respond to the Wayfair Party's amended lawsuit. I was not aware that Ryan Reynolds is now a woman, and I definitely didn't know that Blake Lively was married to one. So go Pride, woo! The reason I'm being annoying and bringing this up is because this is the case of a lifetime. Michael, I'm speaking to you if you're watching this video now. And if I'm the judge and I'm reading this, where you're basically asking for a favor and asking for an extension on your homework, and you can't even read it over one time to make sure you're not making really stupid typos when you know the entire world is going to be going through this with a microscope, it's sad. And for me, when I was a teaching assistant in university, that would just always turn me off. If there's a typo in your document, I'm automatically judging the entire thing because you didn't really put a lot of effort into it. So I just had to call that out because if this type of work is reflective of Blake Lively's entire legal team, if I were her and Ryan Reynolds, I would be very, very concerned for the quality of work that's going to be put continuing into this ongoing legal battle. So instead of being boring like everybody else and just reading you verbatim what Baldoni's lawyer said and what Lively's lawyer said, I took the liberty of translating it for you into Legally Blonde language because number one, it makes it more funny. And number two, I think it's very entertaining when you strip away the highly intellectual legal jargon, you start to notice that a lot of these lawsuits are really just back in high school, 2 parents complaining to the principal and then the principal trying to mediate their arguments. And I think you'll see that with these translations. So Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds' team wrote to the judge and said, "Hey, Your Honor, so here's the thing. Blake's supposed to file her updated lawsuit by February 14th, but like, ew, that's way too soon. And we'd much rather have until March 5th. Also, me and Ryan just want to double check that our deadline to file this lawsuit is dumb, please delete it motion is still March 20th. And if it's not, can we just make it March 20th? Thanks, bestie." Now, let's talk about the real issue here. The Wayfair people who were literally suing got multiple extensions for themselves, but when we asked for the exact same thing, they just ignored us. Like, excuse me, suddenly no one can text back? So rude. And as if things weren't already dramatic enough, some guy we were about to sue Jed Wallace completely panicked and sued us first in Texas, which is honestly kind of embarrassing for him. And now we have to waste our time dealing with him too. So, Your Honor, can we just line up these deadlines and get this whole thing organized before it turns into an even bigger disaster? We really appreciate it. XOXO, Blake and Ryan. So the Baldoni camp then responded to this and said, Dear Your Honor, oh wow, so now Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds think deadline extensions are a totally reasonable request. That's interesting, because when we asked for one while literal wildfires were burning down our homes in Los Angeles, they basically said, tough luck, figure it out. I would like to note that Justin Baldoni's lawyer, Brian Friedman, his actual home was literally burnt to the ground in the midst of being sued by Blake Lively. But sure, fine, we're the bigger people here, so we won't block their little request to move their deadline to March 5th. That being said, if they get more time, we should get more time too. So we'd like our deadline pushed to April 16th. Fair is fair. But let's talk about the completely unnecessary side quest they went on in their letter where they threw Jed Wallace under the bus. According to them, he preemptively sued Blake in Texas out of nowhere, like some kind of illegal boogeyman. Except, minor detail, Blake actually sued him first in Texas, which she literally admitted was the right place to do it. So now her team is acting like this lawsuit is some type of totally unhinged attack, when really it's just a response to her own legal moves. That's a pretty big piece of context to leave out, don't you think? So yeah, Your Honor, go ahead and grant their little extension, but let's not pretend this is some grand injustice against them when the receipts say otherwise. Sincerely, the Wayfarer legal team. The judge then responded and said, Blake and Ryan, I've read your whiny over-the-top request, and let me make this very clear. You are not getting until March 5th. You have given me zero good reasons for needing that much time, and quite frankly, I'm not here to accommodate your procrastination. However, because I'm feeling generous, and only because February 17th is a holiday, you get one extra day, February 18th. That's it, take it or leave it. As for your throw this whole lawsuit in the trash motion, fine, March 20th still stands. But let's be real, if you had spent less time whining about Wayfarer's extensions and more time actually working on your case, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. Now, please stop wasting the court's time with this nonsense. So in other words, on February 18th, I will be reading Blake Lively's new lawsuit, and I very much hope for her sake that she'll be introducing some new explosive earthquake-inducing evidence that's going to prove us all wrong. Otherwise, she may end up working at Build-A-Bear. Now, because I am a martyr for you guys, and that's no shade to Build-A-Bear, like, actually, she'll get fired because she'll try to take it over. And she'll be like, no, that's not how you do it. And the mom will be like, get away. No, and she's like, no. I want to feel fulfilled. Give me the bear. And she's going to like get fired in 2 seconds. But anyway, because I am a literal martyr for you guys, I purchased this $90 book from Amazon to see if I could find any evidence of Ryan Reynolds being a psychopath. And I think I did find it. Now on page 148, we have a quote from Ryan Reynolds discussing Nice Pool, who we now know is 100% without a doubt a caricature of Justin Baldoni. He says, quote, "This guy's a fake spiritual piece of shit. It just allows us not to feel too bad about taking his life brutally." I also realized something in looking at the dog pool section, which some people feel that dog pool is actually representing Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds' dark and twisted imagination. And I noticed that the dog's name is Peggy. And what I also realized is Blake Lively's dog's name used to be Penny. I know this because in her alleged sexual harassment from a makeup artist, she said that a producer had complained that her dog Penny had taken a crap in the trailer and she needed to resolve that. So is Peggy the dog named after Blake Lively's pet Penny? And could that give further evidence or credence to the theory that this is actually representing and inspired by Blake Lively? And in the section about Lady Pool, we have a quote from Ryan Reynolds where he says, "We all sort of feel that it's actually Lady Pool who is the one who got Nice Pool in the end." Because in the movie, Lady Pool is actually the one who Justin Baldoni. God, may love like this never find me in the world. Actually, maybe it should, because they are so like the actual metaphor of Justin Baldoni being unalived by the group effort of Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively in that film is actually mind-blowing to me. And it is so metaphorical and it is so poetic, and will be even more poetic when Brian Friedman wins this lawsuit for Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds are never seen in a movie again. Now, Brandon Sklenner may be sitting at home thinking that he's escaped unscathed, but nobody can hide from me, because I noticed on his Instagram, he liked a very interesting comment. Someone commented and said, "You're a slave to Blake and Ryan's money." And he liked the comment. So I'm not sure what that means. Maybe he agrees. Maybe it was an accident, but very interesting nonetheless. Now, a huge point of discussion this week is circulating around the resurfaced interview clip of Blake Lively at the Forbes Women's Summit, where she quite literally admits that she intentionally misrepresents her intentions when entering contracts with other people. And the reason why this interview is so significant and will undoubtedly be used as a strong piece of evidence in the courtroom is because she quite literally blatantly, publicly, openly admits to committing the very crime she's being accused of committing, which is promissory fraud. When you enter a contract, a covenant, a relationship with someone, and intentionally conceal your true intentions, say, for example, moving completely outside of the scope of the original contract and not wanting really to be the actor, but to be the director, the producer, the editor, the composer, the costume designer. And it's just absolutely astounding to me that she admitted this publicly, but here you go. You want to find the person responsible for the smear campaign, Blake? Here she is. I've also been working very hard to uncover the identity of the unnamed makeup artist who allegedly committed sexual harassment against Blake Lively. And I have a theory that it could be a man named Leo Wan, who is a guy who worked on the set of Gossip Girl in 2009. So I'd love to hear your theories, or if you guys have any information on this person or any of your own ideas of who it could be. I also got an anonymous tip from someone who allegedly worked on the set of a movie Blake did called The Rhythm Section, where she supposedly did the exact same thing in trying to completely take over the movie. I'm not going to read you guys the entire statement, but I will post it on my story and let you guys judge its validity for yourself. So every time I try to stop discussing this case, Miss Lively has yet another trick up her sleeve. So what's going on right now? So Miss Lively has just subpoenaed 14 unique individuals in this ongoing lawsuit. And I took the liberty of color coding them, as well as organizing them into different categories for you guys, so you can more easily see Miss Lively's latest victims. And hopefully in the duration of this video, I'll be able to enlighten you guys as to the true motivations and information that her legal team is likely hoping to extract from these individuals. So as always,
I have to pop in because not only is Blake Lively so absolutely 100% desperate to make herself seem like a truthful, honest victim, she is dragging everybody down with her, literally through the pits. Oh, Melanie, yes, girl. Listen, it's so sad he calls him a fake POS. Yeah. It's Ryan, it's his wife. Blake and Ryan are at the point of needing psychiatric help. And that's an insult to people who actually need and seek out psychiatric help. I am so disturbed by all of this. And Blake is like, it's almost like she's flailing because she's just pulling out people that, why are you dragging everybody down with you? Because you don't want to ruin your marriage that you almost ruined because you were flirting and having an inappropriate relationship. I mean, even if it was just flirting, it's not like you guys were intimate or he was leaving his wife and you were having conversations about that. It's just a lot to deal with because I got caught flirting with a man. This is the outcome of I got caught flirting. How big of an ego do you have to never say, hey, you know what? Yeah, babe, I messed up. This was all wrong. Let's just finish the movie, get therapy, whatever we need to do. We may not be involved in part 2, whatever we need to do. And then it makes me wonder, were you trying to seduce Baldoni? Were you trying to seduce him to get the movie? I don't know. Wow, wait, what if that was the whole plan? I'll go in, I'll seduce him. He'll give me all the credits and rights to part 2. He'll be all on my side when I go and maybe say I want to do the production and all. I mean, I'm just trying. I'm confused because my brain doesn't operate as evil like this. But I'm just trying to figure out where is all this coming from. Let's keep going. I want to get back into it because Blake Lively is literally, I don't know who this child is, but she is close. She's looking like the devil, baby. All right. I'm hanging up.
Please take a seat, grab a snack, because it's going to be another long night. So something that is so fascinating about this case, and something that I think everyone needs to be aware of, is there's two things happening simultaneously. There is the public relations war in the court of public opinion, and then there's also the legal battle happening simultaneously. Which one they care about more? I think they're interwoven and they are sort of connected in a lot of important ways. At the heart of it, these are celebrities and they care about what people think. And Blake Lively very much cares about what people think. In fact, she admitted that in some of the text messages. We're going to look at the letter that Justin Baldoni's lawyer, Brian Friedman, recently sent to Judge Lehman. I already feel so bad for Judge Lehman. I think he's exhausted by these people already. But what's important to note, and something that I don't think a lot of people noticed, is that Brian Friedman knows that we're going to be reading this as well. So he's not only sending this letter to communicate and hopefully achieve his goal, which in this case was getting the judge to intervene on these subpoenas, which are very, very broad in scope and not narrow at all and possibly against the law. And I think that there's little lines where I feel that he's actually communicating with us. Okay. And this is one example. He said, "The Lively party's highly experienced counsel are surely well aware that the subpoenas they issued grossly exceed the scope of permissible discovery, as outlined in the federal rules." What I think is happening here is very, very obvious. I think that Blake Lively has completely taken over her legal team the same way that she's taken over this movie. And there's a lot of proof of that. One of the most obvious pieces of evidence for this theory, and I don't even think it's a theory, I think it's a fact, is when her attorneys were basically forced to tell Judge Lehman, hey, Blake Lively doesn't want to be deposed by Brian Friedman. Anyone who has so much as watched more than one episode of Suits knows that you don't get to select who deposes you. And Judge Lehman, if you look at the transcript, he basically laughed at them and was like, why are you asking that? Sometimes you have very, very high-strung, bossy clients who say, I don't care what the law is. That's what you're going to do. I'm not being deposed by Brian Friedman, so make it happen. And they're like, I can't do that. And obviously, it doesn't seem like Miss Lively is used to hearing the word no in her life. So I think that it's very likely that her legal team is quite frustrated with her. So I fully believe that these very far-reaching subpoenas are actually evidence of Lively's behavior behind the scenes. And when you have someone like Brian Friedman saying, the Lively party's highly experienced lawyers are surely well aware that these subpoenas are ridiculous. These are highly experienced lawyers. Of course they know this. But what I think is happening here is that Lively is weaponizing the legal system and really using it as an extension and an arm into the PR battle. So then there's another internal battle happening between the lawyers and her and the PR people, where the lawyers are like, we're lawyers, we're not PR people. We need to follow the law. We need to appear respectable. And the very last thing that the lawyers probably want is for the judge to catch on to the fact that Lively is basically taking advantage of the legal system to fight the PR battle. That's not what the legal system is for, right? And then we have even more evidence of this when Brian Friedman says, it appears that these subpoenas are more than anything else a media ploy, having been promptly leaked alongside a lengthy and combative statement by the Lively party's legal team. So as soon as these subpoenas were issued, they also released a statement in the Hollywood Reporter. So like I said, we have the legal battle, which is happening, which is literally physically overlaid on top of the public relations battle. And we have Lively's lawyer who came out in tandem with these subpoenas being issued saying, we will now receive all of the receipts that unsurprisingly are nowhere to be found on Mr. Brian Friedman's website. And like Miss Lively, those receipts will have their day in court. So the reason why that statement is so ridiculous is that these subpoenas that they're seeking are not between Lively and other people. They don't know what receipts they're going to find. They're guessing. They are basically reverse engineering a case here. It seems that Lively is fully convinced that all of the outrage toward her in August was purely a smear campaign, was not organic at all, and is fully and wholeheartedly relying on this idea that she's going to find some kind of smoking gun, which does not at this point in time exist. Otherwise, she would have included it in her original complaint and her original lawsuit. And if there were messages between her and Justin Baldoni where he was admitting something, she would have included that. So we've really seen all of her evidence. There's not a lot of it. And it's really obvious that they're hoping to use these subpoenas to uncover something. And that's why they are so broad. And also, I don't even think logistically, if they were to receive 3 years worth of text messages, they even have the resources to read all of that. They're a small team of lawyers. But despite the fact that these subpoenas are fairly meritless, if I was on Baldoni's legal team, I would be concerned about the fact that some of them were issued to the cell phone providers themselves. And we already heard from Brian Friedman that one of the cell phone providers have already agreed to providing the information being sought through the subpoenas. And I have a theory that it's likely the cell phone provider who's being so cooperative is likely T-Mobile. If you guys know, Mint Mobile was partially owned by Ryan Reynolds, and he actually sold it to T-Mobile for $1.35 billion. So that could provide an explanation as to why one of the cell phone providers is being so cooperative, despite the fact that these subpoenas are being contested in court. So let's go through each one of these subpoenas so we can better understand exactly what Lively is looking for. So the first group I put together is the Wayfair group. Lively is subpoenaing both the executives of the company as well as the staff. So what is she looking for? Her first victim, of course, is Justin Baldoni. She is seeking every single call, text, data, location from December 2022 up until today. That is the same for Jamie Heath. It is the same for Steve Sarowitz, who is the co-founder, the billionaire, you guys know him. And then also someone named Tara Hanks, who is the president of Wayfair. So the reason why this is so bizarre, and I flagged this, is because they're seeking the same thing, every single text, email, piece of data, her location for the past 3 years. And the reason why I think this is further evidence of either, number one, Lively has the dumbest lawyers in the entire world, which I don't believe, or number two, this is the result of Lively throwing a temper tantrum, because Tara Hanks didn't join the company until March of 2024. So what could you possibly want from her for 2 years previously? You want to see her doctor's appointments? You want to see her messaging her kids? I'm just reading right now that she has 5 daughters. So you want to see all her messages between her daughters? Like, why could you possibly want that? It's completely irrelevant. Objection, relevance, there's no relevance. And it's just evidence that this is Blake Lively. They're also seeking the records, same thing, for the staff, someone named Milika Doskovich, who is the vice president, same thing, December 2022 up until today. And then someone named Jeriesi Blackman, another red flag because she's seeking everything from his phone from December 2022 up until today, but he did not join until July of 2024. Make it make sense. So Lively's next group of victims is everybody at the agency group, which is the public relations firm that Lively believes is responsible for the smear campaign. This was actually the only subpoena that made sense to me, that she actually got the dates right. So she wants Melissa Nathan's cell phone from July 2024 up until today. So that's a little bit more reasonable because that's when she was actually involved in the situation. She's also seeking Jennifer Abel, who was originally Justin Baldoni's PR person and then moved over to TAG. And then also 3 team members, Katie Case, Brianna Butler, Matthew Mitchell. Sorry, Blake Lively wants your cell phones. The next victims of this flagrant invasion of privacy are people by the name of Matthew and Henry, who work at Jones Works, which was the public relations firm that originally employed Jennifer Abel before she left, quit. And then the lady that ran that company, who was a little bit wacko, was ultimately the one that gave her cell phone to Blake Lively, where she found those text messages that she later doctored for the New York Times article. I personally don't think these guys know anything, but for whatever reason, Lively wants their entire digital existence for the past 3 years. So I'm sorry, Matthew Gibson and Henry Argitai. I hope that you guys weren't cheating on your spouses, because we're going to find out. And so Blake Lively has just filed her newest lawsuit, and I have to be honest with you guys, after reading it, I am more disappointed today than I was on August 16th, 2009, when I realized I wasn't really getting a letter for Hogwarts. And I think at this point, I should also probably sue Blake for printer fees in addition to silencing me. But regardless, there is still a lot to get through, so let's do this again. So let's quickly start with SNL, because I didn't get a chance to tell you guys my opinion on what happened. In my opinion, I believe that Ryan Reynolds begged. You might be wondering why. Have you ever heard? So Blake Lively. So Blake Lively has just filed her newest lawsuit, and I have to be honest with you guys, after reading it, I am more disappointed today than I was on August 16th, 2009, when I realized I wasn't really my opinion on what happened. In my opinion, I believe that Ryan Reynolds begged Blake Lively to go as part of their ongoing scheme to sort of assert dominance and show we're not backing down, we're innocent and whatnot. And I think in order to do that, I think that he intentionally misled his wife and told her that the joke was just going to be basically where they just ignored what was happening. He was going to say the part about the question. He was going to be one small part of the skit where everybody in the audience was asking questions, and that was it. I think he probably explicitly promised her that there would be no direct acknowledgement of actually what was happening. And I think her face, in my opinion, I don't think she's that good of an actress. What I saw in her face when he said, "Why? What have you heard?" I saw complete betrayal. I saw complete shock. And I saw her mask drop, which sometimes happens when you take a drug called beta blockers. You're very calm and you sometimes will act in a way almost like you're drunk, like you're not thinking about being perceived because your nerves are gone. And I think that's what we saw. And this has now been substantiated by the guy who holds the cue cards. He's confirmed that this joke was later added in by Reynolds. So that's basically what I believe happened. And I think that he really has damaged his case as a result of that. Sure, it was good for SNL and the ratings, but that's just what I think happened. So the first major change that I noticed with this lawsuit is the legal team has really attempted to improve the narrative structure of it. So it begins with a quote from Justin Baldoni that they pulled from one of his TED Talks where he's talking about being a feminist and listening to women. And there are several quotes from Justin Baldoni woven throughout the lawsuit in an attempt to present the idea that there is a discrepancy between the Justin Baldoni that he presents himself as publicly and who he really is privately. So the theme of him being a hypocrite is heavily woven throughout this entire lawsuit. They then don't name names, but they heavily imply that Jenny Slate is receiving violent threats. And then later on the next page, use this as an explanation as to why they will not be including any screenshots or naming any witnesses for fear of them becoming compromised or becoming victims of potential violence and further online harassment. But I can think of another reason why they're not really including screenshots. So in addition to the 42 spelling and grammatical errors that I thought were completely unacceptable, I also found something that made me laugh on page 4, which is Lively's legal team thought this was a gotcha, where they quote Baldoni's legal team saying that they confess that Lively is the kind of person who genuinely believes she's right and that all of this is unjust. I find that very strange because I don't think anyone believes that Blake Lively goes home at night saying, "Mwahaha, I'm going to fabricate sexual harassment stories so I can take over the movie. Mwahaha." And then her and Ryan Reynolds are like evil laughing into a crystal ball, like a Disney movie. Or maybe they are that crazy. I've never met them. But most shitty people, most narcissists believe that they're right. That's what makes them narcissists, is the lack of self-awareness. So I just find it funny that they inserted that quote thinking it was some kind of a gotcha. So I noticed many inconsistencies when reviewing this document. One of the first being on page 4, where Lively on May 24th allegedly messages someone that people believe was Liz Plank, but we have no confirmation of that, complaining about what was happening on set. But I remember from Baldoni's lawsuit on May 23rd, she actually messaged him praising him. So I found that to be a little bit inconsistent. But the most glaring lie that I got from all of this that I think will 100% be included in court is on page 6, when Lively's lawyers feel so strongly that they actually bolded this part. And they said that none of the requested protections were tied in any way to Miss Lively's creative input in the film and were made months before any discussions happened about her making a cut of the film. So they make it very clear that this return to work document, if you guys remember, before she returned to work after the strike, she put together this list of 17 demands that happened after this infamous meeting where Ryan Reynolds yelled at Justin Baldoni. They're saying it had nothing to do with creative input. Well, let's go back to her original complaint, okay? Let's see what they said here. So don't know if you can see, I circled it 3 times where the word creative issues was mentioned. So it says, she wants to oversee the schedule, logistics, problem solving, and creative issues. She wants to have an experienced producer added on to the original one who oversees logistics and creative issues. Point number 13. She wants someone over here, on set with overseeing the schedule, logistics, problem solving, and creative issues. Creative issues, creative issues, creative issues. You mentioned the words creative issues 3 times, and then in your newest lawsuit, you said that in bold, there was absolutely no discussion that this was purely about sexual harassment. Then why is the word creative mentioned 3 times? Obviously, that was an aspect of it. So I just don't appreciate being bold-faced lied to and Yeah, that's the definition of gaslighting. It was explicitly mentioned 3 times. And I think that is a huge mistake on the part of her legal team to say something that's just so explicitly false. So, in other words, the stipulations that were needed to be met for her to return to work were not just about sexual harassment, they were also about creative issues, because that's what was literally written in the document from your own lawsuit. But I guess at this point, I shouldn't be surprised that Lively's legal team so explicitly lies about things that we have in writing, because it's exactly what they did with the subpoenas. They tried to subpoena every single text message. And then when Baldoni's legal team complained about it, they told Judge Lehman, oh, no, we are not asking for all the text messages. Yes, you did. I read the subpoenas myself, and I don't appreciate it when I read something with my own eyes and someone says that that's not true. So then after saying they're not going to name anybody in this lawsuit because it's so dangerous, they go on to specifically name someone named Angie Giannetti, who was overseeing the distribution of the film at Sony, who was the distributor. So I just found it very suspicious that this was one of the few people that they named. I'd be very curious to know if there's some kind of personal relationship with the Reynolds family, because I can't think of another reason as to why this was the only person willing to put her name on the homework and say, yes, I'll come forward as well. So I also noticed that her lawyers modified their language from the original complaint to the new complaint, where they said that the smear campaign was actually a substantial factor of damages, not the main factor contributing to everything. So in other words, her legal team is now admitting that the outrage against her was at least partially organic, whereas before they thought it was fully just online bots. Well, I myself posted a video in August, and I assure you, I'm a real person with my own thoughts, and I posted that, and I'm not a robot. Something else that actually stunned me is that on page 17, Lively's legal team actually included screenshots from Baldoni's PR representatives, where they basically admit that it's not a smear campaign and that Lively effed herself over by doing the unfollow thing and not taking any photos together, which is true. Had Baldoni just gone to the premiere, I don't think any of this would have ever happened. They also include, once again, an alleged interaction between Blake and Justin, where Justin told her, I'm not even attracted to you. If that really happened, I think that may have been the real moment that Blake felt she had to burn everything to the ground, because I don't think she has ever heard those words in her entire life and would likely take great offense to it. A part of this lawsuit that absolutely made me laugh out loud was apparently Justin Baldoni said he could speak to the dead, and he spoke to Blake Lively's dead father. And then, trying to deflect with humor because she felt uncomfortable, she told him, let him know he owes me $40. Baldoni responds and says, wait, does he really? Miss Lively, shocked, says, oh God, no, he owes me so much more than that. Baldoni then closed his eyes, put his hand on his heart, and said, I was leaving my apartment this morning and I reached into my pocket and there was $40 in there I did not put there. Miss Lively was deeply disturbed by this. I believe this is the first thing that Blake said that I do believe happened. So a new and very bizarre claim that I hadn't seen before is they're actually...
Wait, sorry to pull in, guys. Was that not hilarious? What is happening? I feel so. I started off this live stream with so much vitriol for Blake. But what I'm starting to maybe see is that, is it possible, and you guys tell me what you think in the comments, is it possible that Blake Lively is Ryan Reynolds really the bad guy here? Because I'm assuming this is a woman. If everything that I'm seeing is what it's supposed to be, is this a woman who could not tell her husband that she made a mistake or she was caught up flirting with the co-star of the movie? That's what I'm starting to assume, is that even if I did make a mistake, even if I wanted to be honest, the backlash from my husband would have been so monumentous that, okay. Yeah, see? This is what I'm thinking. Melanie. I'm thinking that Blake Lively could have said something, maybe wanted to say something, but was so afraid of her husband's response that she got kind of caught up in this tornado and had to keep it going, because if she was ever to back up and make him look foolish and make him look foolish in any way, and make him look foolish in saying I was flirting with the new guy, making him look foolish in saying, okay, maybe we're going too far, you have to stop this. In any way, she was nervous about making him look foolish, is what I'm thinking now. After SNL, I think, see, we don't know their history, but I mean, just the history of any very powerful man with a lot more money than his wife, you know, you're kind of like a deer in the headlights. And I'm starting to have a little more sympathy. Not a lot, but a little bit more sympathy for Blake than I did when I started this. And looks like, yeah. And then she was mad over the bad press she got because she doesn't know how to promote a DV movie. Oh, yeah. This girl. I need to do some more. I want to do some deep diving on Blake Lively's history and Ryan Reynolds, because they present this image. But now if I close my eyes and I think about it, she may be. Let's keep going. I'm starting to feel a little bit of sympathy for her. I don't think she's innocent. I definitely don't think she's innocent, but I think that Ryan Reynolds is maybe 110% guilty and she's 100% guilty, or however you want to split it. Yeah, it's very triggering when you sit back and think about, why would she do this? It's very triggering because I don't know. Is she a woman that's in a relationship where she can't? Anyway, let's keep going.
Actually accusing Justin Baldoni of secretly recording Blake Lively and Jenny Slate on one occasion. Can someone explain to me why Justin Baldoni would need to secretly record two people of whom he has hours and hours worth of footage of them from set? And then the other reason I found this very weird is that in 2017, Blake Lively actually accused a makeup artist of secretly filming her and got him fired. And I haven't been able to track down who this guy is, but could Blake just think people are secretly recording her when they're like on the phone? And she's like, they're definitely taking pictures of me. One of the dumbest aspects of this lawsuit is they explicitly cite her inability to attend SNL's 50th anniversary because of her emotional state as core foundational proof that she's experienced these damages. Meanwhile, the night before this lawsuit was filed, she actually attended SNL. So anyone telling you that was a genius move on their part is completely wrong. They fully just undermined their legal case, and it will be brought up in court. Predictably, they also doubled down on their claims that that slow dancing scene we all saw was an act of sexual harassment where Baldoni was acting out of character. But because I actually read the book, I noticed on page 221, Ryle actually does the exact thing that Justin Baldoni did in character in that scene. It says, Ryle put his thumb under my chin and tilts my face up to his. So that's why you read books, kids. And lastly, she includes several screenshots of people calling her the C word, which I obviously don't approve of. But it does not prove that there's a smear campaign. Correlation does not equal causation, as we know. And I mean, I've experienced horrific comments, death threats, everything, and I don't have a Tribeca penthouse, and I don't get paid for this, so I just suffer for free. So Blake Lively has just filed her newest lawsuit, and I have to be
Thank you all so much for watching. No, this was really like my best live. I've had so much fun. I just love being here with y'all. This was very, very, very exciting. Poor Justin Baldoni had to deal with this crypt keeper, Blake Lively, and her nasty drama. But I think we're all done. I'll be back either later tonight because I like just hanging out. And yeah, maybe we'll hang out and find something else to talk about. Maybe we'll find some of the Candace Owens tea. But I hope to see you all again soon. Melanie, thank you so much for being in the comments, hanging out with me. Lost Peasant, thank you so much for hanging out. Everyone else that stopped by, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share the video. I'll be back. I guess we can just keep chatting and gossiping later on. Bye.